everyone, and welcome back to the Joy-Filled Universe podcast. I am your host, Lisa Ryan, and today we are going to be talking about something that was not my initial focus and truly became my focus as I explored some emotions that were really coming up for me. And they were really outside of my norm too, because they were truly starting to bring me down. And the more awareness I applied to some of these low vibe thoughts, the more I discovered that what I initially thought was my low vibe generator became something completely different. So I decided that for this week, I wanted to share some self-discovery with all of you, along with what I am doing to rewire my mind so that I can put these negative thoughts straight out of my mind and banish them from my castle forever. Okay, so how am I going to start here? I think I'm going to start with something fun, which happens to be I am going to be going to Ireland for a little holiday, and it is going to be so much fun because my boyfriend and I are going to be riding our bikes. Well, actually, it's like kind of like this tour group thing, so they're giving us bikes, but anyway, you get the flick. Anyway, either way, we're going to be cycling our way through the beautiful countryside of the Emerald Isle, and I cannot wait to see the beautiful landscapes and the charming villages and the lovely hotels, and not to mention the delicious food and beverages too, along with all of the other incredible experiences that are coming into my reality super soon. And what makes this holiday extra unique is the fact that it is actually a true break for me. And I say that because many times when I travel on holiday, I'm doing it for me, but I'm also doing it for others too. Like when I'm going to visit family or friends or going somewhere because it's like a friend's birthday or a special occasion, something like that, which I love, love, love. However, it has been a long time since I have actually gone somewhere as a real holiday. And so because this is a biking adventure and my routine life too does not exactly include riding a bicycle every single day of the week. So I needed to get out there and purchase some new bike clothes. And yeah, I guess I'm saying new because I didn't really have any to begin with. So it's a whole thing, and from shoes to helmet, it's just a thing. So I went out and I got 3 sets of pants, which all have like this 6-hour padding in my tush. I got some jerseys and shoes with clips and some windbreakers and also like these kind of like rain jackets. And I also got this light wool. I think they call it like merino wool or something like that. They're layers just in case it gets chilly. And and I got some wool socks too that will keep my feet nice and warm and dry. And thankfully, I already had a helmet and gloves. So I think I'm finally complete with all the shopping. And while I was buying all of the clothes, I started feeling kind of uncomfortable because the cost of the clothes was not inexpensive. So this feeling that was sneaking in was really strange for me because many years I have been super disciplined when it comes to working hard and saving my money and investing. And I've been super responsible too, to always just live within my means. And I often want to say too, that I do a lot of manifesting and money mindset work too. So I believe all of this has helped me. And I am just extra grateful that I actually have the means to buy all of these things, which feels really exciting. But I couldn't understand why then buying a bunch of riding gear was starting to feel so stressful for me and was making me feel so anxious. So much so that I then started to begin coaching myself to figure out if this was a money block limiting belief or if it was something else. And the more I searched within, the more I began to notice a pattern. And because of that pattern, I figured out that there was definitely a deep-rooted belief that existed. And the next thing I started searching for was, what was this belief? Now, I'm going to go backwards to come forwards for the sake of adding some context here. So just stay with me. Okay. So when someone buys me or gives me a gift, for example, I immediately begin thinking about what I could buy them in return. When somebody offers to buy me dinner, I immediately want to at least split the check or leave the tip or contribute something. And if I'm honest, sometimes I just avoid those kind of situations. I avoid the, hey, let me take you to dinner invitations altogether, just because it just feels stressful to me. And even when there's like no money involved here too, right? I'm just going to put this one out there. When someone wants to help me in some way, shape, or form, they just want to lend a helping hand, I will think of a million ways to say, I got it. And I'll do whatever I can to just do it myself and avoid asking or accepting the offered help. However, on the flip side of all of this, buying gifts for others is one of my favorite things to do, and I will spend days and weeks searching for the most perfect gift for a friend or family member or my boyfriend, or even if it's just like an office party kind of thing. I will take that activity very seriously because I always want to find the perfect gift. And I also love helping people any way I can, friends, family, or even perfect strangers. I love to help people out, and there doesn't have to be anything in it for me either. I just get such joy helping wherever and however I can. And so when it comes to the act of buying or spending, that doesn't faze me, even when it's like a lot of money, like something that just happened last week, for example. The refrigerator in the rental property that I own just stopped working. So I immediately dashed off to the store and purchased a new one. And paying that time and money didn't even faze me. I was happy to buy the new refrigerator as soon as possible. And I know you must be thinking, like, okay, yeah, well, you're the landlord, so you kind of have to go buy them a new refrigerator anyway. So yeah, that's true. But I didn't go on the cheap. So how about that? Okay, now I'm also going to say that I love to save money. I do. But intentionally spending hard-earned money on others doesn't bother me. In fact, it makes me happy. So now we're going to come forward once again. And I started to figure out that the uncomfortable feeling that I was having around buying all kinds of clothes for my trip was not really a money block or even like a limiting belief around money. Rather, I believe that I am, as I just displayed, incredibly comfortable with being a giver. I love helping others, supporting people, coaching and mentoring people, buying gifts, tipping generously whenever I go out, and I adore giving to multiple charities on a monthly basis too. So I love to do things that make other people's lives happier and easier. However, being the receiver, that is what feels awkward for me. When I am the receiver, I feel vulnerable and uncomfortable, awkward, and just off altogether. And I'm thinking that this might be the case because as we grow up, many of us have learned that our value came from what we could provide, what we could contribute, how we could help, how we could serve. And don't get me wrong, these are terrific qualities to have as a human, yet they can become limiting when we unconsciously begin to measure our worth by what we provide rather than who we are. And from there, we can also decide for ourselves that everyone else deserves care and support, generosity and abundance, except for one incredible person, and that happens to be ourselves. And so all of this to say, what I had discovered about myself was I wasn't feeling a level of scarcity from a money perspective, but I was feeling a level of scarcity from a worthiness perspective. And after I peeled back all of those layers, I noticed that little voice inside of me that had been sending lots of messages that were raising the question of, do I really deserve this? And so I know that a lot of this may sound as though I'm messaging this very succinctly, which I kind of am because it could become a very long story. And if I played it all out and everything that I did do to break this whole thing down, it would become quite long. But just because I'm only sharing the summarized version, I certainly do not want to diminish the fact that what I had discovered about myself has become pretty profound for me, because as I am becoming more and more aware, I'm starting to see this worthiness scarcity crop up in so many areas of my life, from the catalyst of discovering, what this was through buying all these clothes for my holiday, to areas of my career, and even in some of my relationships. So many of the negative thoughts that I have been experiencing are largely rooted in my belief that I'm not worthy. And this to me has been an eye-opening gift. And I'm so grateful that I have discovered it, because from here, I started to really dig in, and I kept thinking to myself, how would I continue to coach myself if I were my own client? Which got me pretty energized, because I thought, if I have learned how to become generous with others, then I can also learn how to become generous with myself, because I believe that worthiness is by no means selfishness. It is a form of self-love. And from there, I know that we are born as loving and joyful beings. That's how we're hardwired. And because of that, I know that worthiness isn't something I have to learn as a new belief. Nope, it's not, because it is a belief that I was born with. So it is in fact something that I don't have to learn new, I just have to remember it. And to do this, I consulted one of my favorite books, which, I think next week I'm going to do an episode about some of my favorite books, because that's like a question that people have asked me a lot. So let's just stay tuned for that. I'm going to put a pin in that one. And spoiler alert, this book that I'm about to talk about might be one of them. I just really haven't decided if I'm going to do a specific subject focus or not. But anyway, stay tuned and we'll see where that goes. Okay, back on track here. So Dr. Joe Dispenza wrote a book called Becoming Supernatural. And from that book comes a really popular saying that he even messages quite often outside of the book in many of his events. And that is, our personalities create our personal realities. Or in other words, our habitual thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and behaviors collectively create the blueprint of the life we experience. So if we continue thinking the same thoughts and in turn feeling the same emotions while continuously running the same stories in our minds day in and day out, we continue creating the same reality for ourselves. Now, for the sake of today's pod, I decided to summarize the concepts that were in Dr. Joe's book, along with how I am planning to put them all into practice for myself, because I am absolutely on the quest to rewire this lack of worthiness belief within myself. So, the first step that we must take is to change our energetic blueprint. And the best way that we can do this is through what Rhonda Byrne defines as the greatest secret, and that is to have the awareness of what it is that we want to change, which is exactly what happened to me. I became aware of a subconscious program that had been quietly running in the background of my mind, which largely said, giving is safe, receiving is uncomfortable, helping others is easy, helping myself requires justification, and everyone else is worthy of all good things. And I, on the other hand, need to earn my worthiness. And so when I became aware of this, I decided that I could either continue rehearsing that story of unworthiness, or I could begin creating a new one. And I am going to teach myself that I am worthy by practicing generosity toward myself for a change. And with deliberate intent, I will also teach my nervous system that receiving is safe and that my worthiness has never been tied to what I do for others. My worthiness exists simply because I exist. So the first step was becoming aware. And now the next one is separating ourselves from the old self. And one of the best ways to get into our old self is through some quiet meditation. And for some of us, that can be sitting quietly, or it can be going out for a nice walk or run or bike ride, or whatever it is to just quiet the mind. And so as we meditate, we start to observe our thoughts rather than becoming them. And Michael Singer, who is infamous for two books that I absolutely love, which is The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment, he will say that when he meditates, he observes his thoughts like clouds floating through the sky, because we aren't attached to them. We are simply aware of them, and we allow them to drift past us too. So when we become aware of low vibe thoughts, we can recreate how we are seeing them so that we don't become them. And what I mean by this is, instead of saying, I am anxious, I am frustrated, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve this, instead of saying stuff like that, try saying, I am experiencing anxiety. I am noticing a thought of self-doubt. I'm aware of that frustrating thought. And what this practice will actually do for us is it begins to change the space between our consciousness and our conditioning. And the more we do this with like this focus and quiet intention, the bigger that space becomes, until that thought is no longer part of our experience because we have detached ourselves from it. And I also want to share that I have this sign that hangs up in my office, and I think I posted this on Instagram too, but anyway, it says, don't believe everything you think. And I love that, because our thoughts do not define us, and thoughts that don't serve us have no business floating around in our clear blue sky. So let's just let them go. Let them move past us and say, I observed you, and now I'm going to say goodbye. Okay, so the next step here is to stop rehearsing the past. So one of the things that Dr. Dispenza says is that so many times people wake up and they immediately begin remembering yesterday, which means we bring back all of the thoughts and emotions that were largely a repeat of the day prior, which is why they probably say too that 10% of our thoughts every day are actually new, just 10%, because the other 90% are just a repeat of yesterday. And so as a result, we just continue to live the same day over and over again, which, is kind of like a Groundhog's Day. And if it was especially a bad day, why do we want to torture ourselves? Rather, let's look forward and be grateful for the lessons that we learned and just keep moving, right? Let those negative thoughts just float past us rather than becoming those thoughts, because we will weave them into our blueprint if we're not careful, and then they will become our personality. I'm just going to say. So the practice here is, rather than rehearsing our past self, let's start rehearsing our future self. And a quick side note, we went into depth about living into our future selves just a bit ago. So if you want to learn more about that and you haven't listened to it yet, check out that episode. I think it was titled something like one of my favorite ways to instantly raise my vibe or something like that. Just check it out because I think it's pretty good. Anyway, rehearsing our future selves is super valuable, because the more we practice, the more we are creating that new blueprint, because our mind learns through repetition. And I also want to add that this concept is actually messaged by many thought leaders in their teaching. So for example, Bob Proctor would speak about acting as if, and Dr. Wayne Dyer often reminded us that we will see it when we believe it. So all are very slightly different language. However, they all point toward a similar principle, which is our inner state or our energetic blueprint influences how we choose to show up in the world. All right. The next step is feeling the emotions before the experience arrives. And this step totally aligns to the power of manifesting and the law of vibration and the law of attraction. And in Becoming Supernatural, it is argued that the body often waits for external events to occur before feeling joy, gratitude, abundance, love, and all of those high vibe feels. And the objective here is to reverse that process and feel the joy now as if the event has already happened, which is why I also love to say that the joy is often found in the journey itself rather than the final destination. And one of my friends and manifestation mentors to a degree, my girl Laura, who is a total gift in my life, has often said to me, when she felt as though the universe was like taking her on a long route to her manifestation, she would say, "Oh, imagine the terrific story this will make when my manifestation has come to fruition." And that forever changed my perspective, because she's right. There is so much fun in the journey, and retelling that journey is also a lot more fun most times than the actual final destination. So looking forward to my Ireland trip is another example of that. I have truly loved looking forward to this adventure. I love dreaming about the activities and experiences that are all ahead of me. And although Ireland is my final destination, I am far from saying stuff like, when I land in Dublin, then I'll be happy. Nope, I am completely thrilled right now, which is really how we should all face all of our desires, because the more fun we have while becoming, the less resistance that exists in our path. And the faster also, too, that our manifestations will arrive, I'm just going to say. And so by feeling elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, and appreciation, love, inspiration, and happiness, we are aligning our minds and our bodies with the future that we are creating, because we are aligning to high vibe frequencies. And from that, opportunities and experiences just naturally present themselves to us. Okay, and now this just brings me to the very last step, which is repetition creates a new identity. So just like we created the thoughts and emotions that we are currently having, we can create new neural pathways in our mind through repetitive thoughts and emotions. So for example, every day, whether we are journaling, meditating, going for a walk, and allowing our minds to be quiet, or even just taking a mental break at work for a little while for that matter, let's just exercise our minds routinely. And we can create then this new blueprinted version of us by tuning into who we are becoming through our new ways of thinking and through our new ways of feeling and choosing, and even just living and showing up as our new improved 2.0 selves. And we also need to genuinely see and feel ourselves as that future version of us. We have to put ourselves in the picture, because over time, these new thoughts and emotions will become familiar to us, and our bodies and minds will align. And with that alignment comes our energy, and our energy projects into the universe in a form of the emotions that we feel, because remember, emotions are energy in motion after all. And with this in mind, we know that we are all energetic beings, so we will become magnetic to our desires and will absolutely create the life that we are completely worthy of living. All right, so I know that all of this was a lot, so I'm going to venture to kind of summarize all these steps right here, and I'm hoping that I'm getting them in the right order. Anyway, become aware of the old thoughts and emotions, interrupt the automatic patterns, meditate to create better feeling thoughts and emotions, define our future selves clearly, feel the emotions of that future self now, rehearse being our 2.0 versions daily, and make the everyday choices that are consistent with our new identity. And I would like to say too that abundance is not just about giving. Abundance is about the healthy flow of both giving and receiving. Many people who are generous have no problem giving. They donate, they help others, they tip well, they buy gifts, they volunteer their time, support people that they love, all of those incredible things. However, if you see yourself here, and if you are like me, we can also struggle to receive, which unintentionally interrupts the natural flow of abundance. So let's change that mindset, because receiving is not taking. Receiving is allowing. And I am personally keeping that thought front and center in my mind, because when someone offers a gift or buys dinner or helps me with a problem or compliments my work, it is okay for me to know that I'm worthy of receiving that, because receiving generously is not selfish. It is balance to the giving part of me. And it is also allowing for abundant universal flow to continue in our lives. And so, this episode today, both creating it and now messaging it, and I think I'm going to go back and listen to it too, will definitely become a new intentional daily practice for me, because I know that it takes concerted effort to change our thoughts and rewire our minds. However, when I know that the universe is always listening and always responding, that is incentive enough for me to get cracking here, because I know that I am worthy of all good things. And I believe that I can and will bring myself to find as much joy in receiving as I have in giving. And this balance is going to make me stronger and even a better human than I already am today. And my wish is that it helps all of you in the very same way. And that, my beautiful friends, is going to be a wrap for this week. So I hope that this episode resonated for all of you, and I hope that you found it to be interesting and applicable to your lives, or even the lives of those you love and care about. And if you did, one thing I would absolutely be open to receiving would be a rating, a review, follow the show, or share it with your friends. All of this is extra helpful because it gets the pod out there and noticed, and I am truly grateful always for your support. And I'm just also going to share a really quick quote too from Dr. Joe Dispenza, and that is, the best way to predict your future is to create it. So let's be co-creators with the universe, and let's manifest all of our worthy desires starting today. And on that note, I am your host, Lisa Ryan. Actually, I'm going to say on that note, I am your very worthy host, Lisa Ryan. This is the Joy-Filled Universe podcast, where we explore all the tools and tricks that are going to make your universe even more joyful than it already is. And I will see you next week. Bye.